Okay, so glad we could put this together. It worked on your schedule and so forth. It's so good
Harold.
to see you. Happy holidays to you.
Same to you and
one and all
everybody
in the
out there.
audience. This is going to air during Christmas week. And welcome very, very much to Conversations. In the audience, a pleasure to welcome a dear friend of mine and of the world, and also a very real pioneer in terms of public access and alternate programming venues. And he's a musician extraordinaire and a beautiful fellow, and that'd be John Hammond. He'll be known to many people here in New York, although he's had a good deal out in California. John, welcome so much. It's so good to see you again,
Thanks,
my
Harold.
brother. Yeah.
It's a great pleasure and big honor to be here with you on your show, Conversations. And not only that, live in the studios of MNN TV.
Yes, indeed.
Which is a big thing for me to be here. I've been, as you know, on MNN TV, not as long as you, but we started over at MCTV, Manhattan Cable TV, when they were at 23rd Street, and you were on 125th Street before that even.
Well, there was. In the earliest stage of about 73 or 74, they had a studio up on 125th Street. That was teleprompter then, Irving Kahn. But I've been at it since about 1970.
I always say my hat's off to Harold because you've been keeping it going so long, you know. And
but you had that thing with the beat, with the
cowboy
boot or something, the foot going like that.
Yeah.
And let's share with that.
Yeah, that was my gimmick.
Because you've been doing television, cable television in New York for a very long time.
27 years now.
All right.
Yeah.
Now talk about some of that, or just why don't you go back a little bit? Share your background.
Okay.
Born and raised a little bit.
Well, you know, I was born in Chicago.
Okay.
And both of my parents were born in Chicago, and my mother is an artistic person. She's a great artist. Oil painting is her forte, and she played the piano, and she was always into music, you know. So my father had a natural feel for music, although he went into medicine.
Okay.
So
as a doctor? Or?
Yes, he was a general practitioner, as his
good.
father was. So I always say, my father was a physician, my grandfather was a physician, and I'm a musician.
Oh, I see. Physician, musician. Yeah.
But ironically, I'm playing now in some of the same hospitals where my father practiced medicine.
Isn't that interesting?
And I play a few shows every month in hospitals and nursing home facilities.
Are they still with us or not? Your mother?
My mom is hanging in there. She's doing
still
amazing.
Painting?
Not as much as she used to, but she still has a great sense of art, and I think that got me into it at a young age. And also, you know, we had the first air conditioner on the block.
Did you?
Yeah.
I think we did too.
Yeah, you know,
Detroit. Yeah.
And Chicago summers were very hot, you know.
They are, yeah.
So the whole neighborhood would come over to one house. The neighborhoods were very, you know, a neighborhood was a neighborhood then.
They were
you know?
neighborly, yeah.
So like before the air conditioners, we used to have these rubber pools, you know, in each front yard.
Right.
So they would send to one house one day, and then the next house the next day, and the kids would play in the pool, and then all the kids out of the pool, and then the adults get in the pool.
Yeah, right.
So when my dad put on this addition, this annex to the house, and this was the air conditioning room, you know, so the whole neighborhood would come over and stuff into this room, and we had a piano in there, and we had a stereo, which I think was mono in those days. You know? It was a monophonic, you know, they used to say monophonic hi-fi.
Hi-fi.
And we used to listen to records, you know. My mother went to high school with Steve Allen and Mel Torme.
The Steve Allen?
Yeah.
Of television?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. Yeah.
So those
and
were,
Mel Torme.
And Mel
the
Torme.
Velvet Tone.
The Velvet Frog.
The Velvet Frog.
Who wrote the Christmas song, which is one of the most played
Which
Christmas.
one is that?
That's, you know, chestnuts roasting over an open fire.
That's Mel Torme.
Mel Torme
he wrote it? He didn't just sing it. He had a velvet voice.
Wrote the tune. It was covered by Nat King Cole and,
right,
you know, hundreds of other people.
Yeah, I think of Nat King Cole and Mel Torme sort of in a very melodic, beautiful,
it's great.
Rich
it's a great tune.
baritone.
Actually, it has great jazz changes, you know.
It does, really?
Yeah, it really does. You know?
But you got interested in music early on then?
Pretty early, I did, actually. And through the... by way of the accordion, you know?
Accordion.
Yeah.
You and Lawrence Welk?
Well, you know, that's a funny thing you say about Lawrence Welk.
People probably always bring that up.
Because you know, although I used to, and I especially enjoy watching the Lawrence Welk reruns. You know,
Do
they're
you
really
really? Yeah.
entertaining. And I did see the Lawrence Welk show live at Harrah's in Tahoe with my family.
Really?
And we had the whole dinner show
Right.
with the champagne bubbles. You know, they had a bubble machine going.
Right,
You know, it'd be so. But they had a great thing. But that wasn't my thing on accordion. You know.
Right.
But the problem with the accordion, for the public relations problem that the instrument has,
Yeah.
it all goes back to Lawrence Welk, you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I shouldn't
Because
have
you know,
come up hearing
it's okay
it. Yeah.
because it's not that way in the rest of the world, but in the USA, when people see an accordion and hear about accordion, of course it's used in Cajun and Zydeco music.
Absolutely.
And a lot of ethnic music and now klezmer music and all that stuff. But the thing is, when you see an accordion, people right away, they say, it's polka time, right?
Yeah, polka, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
So I don't really do the polka thing. You got to have a couple in your back pocket just in case to keep those people quieted down. But, you know, I'm in the musicians union.
Yeah,
you
I know you are serious.
So
musician,
when I go on a gig, I'm being paid. I got to try to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
But when I first got into accordion, it didn't take long before I started disobeying my music teacher and getting some blues licks, you know, and getting into some funky music, and also, of course, I was totally into rock, as everybody was into the Beatles then.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, at that age, I saw the Beatles with all these adoring fans, you know, and I thought, this is the job for me.
They were good.
I wasn't the only one who had that idea.
Right,
Harold,
they were
right?
really good. The Beatles were
I mean, they
really
were great
good.
inspiration to me.
Oh, absolutely.
They were
To the whole
fantastic
generation.
composers. Later on, I got to meet Sir George Martin, you know, and you know, his first take on the Beatles, he thought they were a little rough around the edges. But if you talk to him today, he definitely gives them their kudos for their compositions, you know. They were
when did
really
they break out? They broke out around 63,
62.
62, 63, and they were just bigger than life.
Right, and they tightened.
Ed Sullivan would put them on. It was huge.
Well, they had a tremendous campaign before they came. They had these stickers all over the place that just showed the hair mops without their faces. Remember that?
Yeah.
And it said the Beatles are coming, and nobody knew what the Beatles were even, right?
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they tightened up their band in Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Which
they used to have a different drummer.
Yeah, they had Pete Best before, and they even had a guy before that. But the thing was, that's where they really tightened it up, you know, in Hamburg on the Reeperbahn, in St. Pauli, Hamburg, and I actually came to live there myself.
You lived in the Reeperbahn?
Yeah, and I followed in the
Did
Beatles'
you really?
steps.
I've been there. I was there in 1957 on the Reeperbahn.
Very vital, vital place, nonstop.
Yeah,
you know, goes around the clock.
Yeah.
And you know, the first gig I wanted to play in some of the places where the Beatles played.
Okay,
So my very first gig was in a place that used to be the Top 10 Club, where they eventually became like almost a house band. They were working a lot at the Star Club, which burnt down. So I couldn't.
Where is this, in Hamburg?
Yeah, on the Große Freiheit.
And you actually lived in Hamburg?
Oh yeah, I lived there.
How long? I mean, matter of
2 years of my life.
2 years? That's a
2
long
years
time.
of my life.
Was it a hip town or what?
Very hip.
Is it really?
You know something?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I lived in Frankfurt. I lived in Germany for 5 years.
You did? That's long. How did that happen?
Well, I started going there. My first time, I went there in 1981.
Okay.
On a mission to get a car, you know, and I actually flew to Paris on the Concorde jet.
On the Concorde?
Yeah, which totally
About
changed
3 hours,
changed my life. It took 3 hours and 26 minutes.
3 hours across the Atlantic.
To get to Paris from JFK.
It used to take 3 months to get a letter from in the time of George Washington, 3 months to get a letter to London from New York.
That's right.
Things have changed. Physically, you go 3 hours.
It was, that changed my life, to take the Concorde to Paris. It was my first trip to Europe.
Oh, really?
So I always say that was the game changer. It changed my life.
What made such a big deal? What was such a big deal?
Because now I'm supersonic.
Oh, cut it out. Oh, I see.